light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and it's go, 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 go!
Hello and welcome everyone to the 5 Red Lights. My name's Aaron, I am your host, and let's dive on into a chaotic Russian Grand Prix. So Lewis Hamilton took his 100th Grand Prix win, an unbelievable achievement. Michael Schumacher racked up 91, which in itself was just unfathomable and seemingly untouchable. But not only has Lewis reached and surpassed it, he has reached the golden century of Grand Prix victories. I'm speechless, as you can see. It defies belief. Just well done to Lewis Hamilton, and well done to Mercedes for keeping their cool and helping him to that crucial victory yesterday around Sochi. It would have been oh so easy to stay on the dries or to throw it in the wall, but it was a crucial decision to go on to the intermediates that gave him that race win, and that's where we're going to start. But we're not going to start with Lewis, we're going to start with poor Lando Norris. He took an exceptional pole position, timed it correctly, getting onto the soft tyres in qualifying, and delivered the lap. This is what Lando has been doing all season, and had he gone on to win the race, it would have been completely, fully deserved and completely justified for his performances this season. But very similarly to Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon and George Russell before him, the Twitch Quartet, they've all had their first win, their maiden Grand Prix win, snatched away in cruel circumstances. Charles Leclerc with his engine issue in Bahrain 2019. Alex Albon collected in a collision by Lewis Hamilton, which span him round, and then he eventually retired. And George Russell with the absolute manic period under the safety car in Sakir, and then the eventual puncture as well. Now Lando Norris being caught out with a decision to go to Inters or to stay on the dry tyres when the rain came down in Sochi. It wasn't as cut and dried as people think it might have been, because for much of it, it was, you could get away with slicks, and having Inters on might have been marginally quicker, but it's hard to say that it was definitely the right tyre. And then within the space of about 30 seconds, the heavens opened again, heavier, and Sector 2 was just awash with water. And unfortunately for Lando, that was his undoing. He caught the track at the wrong moment on the wrong tyres, and it's always said, be on the right tyres at the right time and you will put yourself in a position to win the race. Mercedes did that. McLaren, they didn't. It was a little bit of a test for McLaren, and in some ways they did fail, but in so many other ways they are just exceeding expectation. Now, this is a team that has a history of winning races and championships, but this team, this group of management and mechanics and drivers, hasn't been through that. So this is a learning process for them. They shouldn't be disheartened. Think about where they were when Fernando Alonso left the team in 2018. They had second slowest or even the slowest car with the Renault power unit. But under the guidance of Zak Brown and then Andreas Seidel, with Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo at the wheel, they have been on a rapid upward trajectory towards the front of the grid. And they won in Monza on merit, even though Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen collided, and they took the pole position because they got the conditions correct and they got onto the right tyres. And had they won again, it would have been, again, fully on merit. So you can't say that McLaren are lucking into this. They are doing everything they need to do. They're where they should be, and they're almost capitalising on the mistakes of the top two. Lando, that win is coming. Whether it comes this season or not is another question, but it's on its way. Now, of course, there was quite a lot going on in Sochi this weekend. Max Verstappen took his power unit penalty and he finished in second place. There was Carlos Sainz at the front of the grid as well, on the front row, and he took the lead for 13 laps. He performed brilliantly to recover to the podium. Fernando Alonso demonstrated that he has lost none of his racecraft and his cunning by executing a slightly shady move at the first corner. But all of that pales into insignificance, really, because Lewis Hamilton has achieved something so brilliant. I might be slightly biased in the fact that I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan more than most other drivers, but you have to recognise greatness when you see it. It's staring us all in the face. We're living through it. This is a privileged moment. I wasn't a Schumacher fan, but I was lucky enough to live through most of his wins and his dominance, for good or for bad, whichever way you see that. And now I'm living through Lewis Hamilton's. And regardless of how you feel about either driver, you just have to appreciate that they are something special, and they do things that set them apart from everybody else. Hamilton has now left no stone unturned for the last 4 years, and he's just won at an astronomical rate, sweeping 4 world championships after Rosberg kind of got under his skin a little bit. Ghost opening the door. So Hamilton has recovered from that horrible period where he felt he should have been world champion, where things didn't go his way, and he has roared back 4 world championships. He's gunning for a 5th in the row, but he's got a competitor who is not going to back down in Max Verstappen. 7 races to go. We are in for an absolutely incredible run-in. We haven't seen a run-in like this since perhaps 2012, maybe even 2008, 2007. It's a special moment in Formula One, and let's just be grateful that we are here to see it and that we can enjoy what is coming up in the final 7 races. Alright, so it is now time to rate every driver and their performance over the weekend, and let's start with the race winner, Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes. I give him a 4-star rating. He didn't ace qualifying because he left it too late to get onto the slicks, and he made a mistake coming into the pit lane, and then he spun on his one and only lap. It did compromise his teammate, but they ended up taking the engine penalty anyway. But he came back with victory on Sunday, and it was a win that I feel encapsulated everything that Lewis Hamilton has become over the last few years. When he first came into Formula One, his speed was just undeniable. He was outrageously quick from the word go, matching drivers like Alonso and Raikkonen, who were the benchmark of the time. But now he manages the tyres. He sees the big picture. He keeps everything under control. He listens to the radio for the right instructions from his team. And 100 wins. I mean, you could even claim 101 because of the Belgian Grand Prix in 2008. But it is 100 wins now for Lewis Hamilton. A superb performance. Fully deserving. And it's just everything that he's become. And now he leads the World Championship again by just 2 points. It's oh so close. Moving on to his teammate Valtteri Bottas, I give him 2.5 stars. He kind of got shafted in qualifying, and he probably could have done a better job had Lewis not gotten his way in the pit lane, having clunked the wall. But then he took the engine penalty to be a blocker for Verstappen, and in the early laps he was there staying ahead of Verstappen, but then his defence against Max, when Max even threatened a move. Gosh, I mean, Valtteri, that is just useless, utterly pathetic. You're in the second fastest car, and your job is to disrupt the main championship rival of your teammate and the team. Just, I know these mirrors are not really fit for purpose, but come on, man. Shocking. 2.5 stars is putting it, is giving you a little bit more than you deserve. You lucked out with the rain and picked up 5th place. He was 14th, stuck behind Pierre Gasly for much of the race. I mean, Toto seriously needs to consider just sticking George Russell in that car for the rest of the season. Because Bottas, I don't know whether he's mentally checked out or he's just... I don't know. His head is already at Alfa Romeo. That was a really poor performance from Valtteri, and it just sums up his season, to be honest. Threatened good results, but then it's just been rubbish. Yeah. Let's move on to Max Verstappen. He started plumb last on the grid, and he managed to salvage second place. He made mincemeat of the midfield early doors, put a fairly straightforward pass on Bottas, who didn't offer much defence, as we've already covered. And then the strategy didn't quite work out for him, and he was looking at a fifth, at best, maybe a sixth or seventh finish. And then the heavens opened, and they timed it correctly, getting him onto the tyres for the weather conditions, the intermediates. And he picked up a second place. So that is massive damage limitation for Red Bull. So they'll be very pleased with that. It minimises the damage in the Drivers' Championship and a little bit in the Constructors, even though Perez dropped down the order and Bottas climbed up the order. But Milton Keynes' base team will be very happy with that. Moving on to the man in the cursed second Red Bull seat, Sergio Perez. Qualifying didn't quite go his way, and the race was looking much better. He's always a Sunday guy, Sergio, but then he had a bit of a slide in the pit lane and timed his move on to Inters about a lap too late, which was a shame because he was doing well. He was there pressuring Hamilton, shadowing him, ready to pounce if Mercedes got their strategy call wrong. And it kind of unravelled a little bit unfairly for Sergio, but it was his qualifying that let him down. So for Max Verstappen, it's a 4-star rating. And for Sergio Perez, it is a 3-star rating. Lando. It was almost so sweet. It was nearly complete. And then the rain came down. I just feel so sorry for the guy. As I said earlier in the video, I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, but I'm a fan of many of the drivers. I'm a fan of all the British drivers because I'm British, and I think that's fair to be patriotic and support the guys who are from where I live. I was so disappointed for Lando. It was hard to be completely happy for Lewis because Lando thoroughly deserved this victory. And he took the pole position. He drove brilliantly. He drove so maturely. It was like he'd been at the front numerous times before, and maybe even won races before. It was just that one single poor decision that undid him. He didn't panic when Carlos Sainz got a run on him into turn 2, took the lead back after 13 laps, managed the race beautifully. Absolutely beautiful. It was the stuff of a seasoned pro. And it was just that one decision. Hero and zero stuff. It went the wrong way for him. But Lando, your time is coming. Whether it's this season or not, we'll have to wait and see. But the way he's been performing, there is every chance that if Lewis and Max probably inevitably bang wheels again, Lando will be there to pick up the pieces and not Perez or Bottas, because they're both, way back in the order. Lando is the man at the moment. And if he isn't the driver of the season, I don't know who is. So for Lando, I award him a 4.5-star rating. Moving to the Monza winner, Daniel Ricciardo. He finished in 4th place, backing up his win in Italy. He qualified in 5th, which was a good result for him. And generally, he just looks a little bit more on top of the McLaren now after the summer break. And while it wasn't a standout weekend for him, and Lando was again at the front, catching the headlines, Daniel minimised the damage to Ferrari in the Constructors' battle. And Lando did pick up 7th place in the end. So Daniel's 4th place, Lando's 7th place, while Ferrari picked up a podium. It's good stuff. That's what Daniel is there to do. lead the team, minimise the damage, and in this case, back up Lando and make sure that he picks up good points. So for Daniel Ricciardo, I award him a 3-star rating. Moving on to Ferrari, and let's start with Charles Leclerc, who started from the back of the grid alongside Max Verstappen. He had a stunning first lap. He was up in 13th after 3.5 corners, I think, which was brilliant, and he drove so well. He was up in the points, up to the point where the rain came down, and he was another one who got the tyre choice wrong. He stayed out way too long on the slicks, and he even slid off the track at one point, came in for the inters, finished in 15th, which disappointing, but again, if it had gone the other way, if the rain hadn't come, then he'd have been in a really good position. He might have even picked up a podium from the back of the grid. Hero and zero stuff, like I said with Lando, but it was zero stuff for Charles this weekend. So I award him a 2.5-star performance rating. And his teammate Carlos Sainz picking up another podium for Ferrari. I think that is his 3rd now this season. Maybe even his 4th, correct me if I'm wrong. But he is performing so well in a Ferrari that he's still getting used to, I'd say. He's only 7.5 points behind Sergio Perez, which is a stunning effort. And I believe he's now ahead of Charles in the championship. But it could have been a little bit more. The front tyres were graining up in the early stages, and then he pitted early, which kind of handicapped his strategy from there. But he recovered in the rain to pick up a podium in 3rd place. So well done to Carlos. I award you a 3.5-star rating. Moving to the green machines of Aston Martin and Lance Stroll. Well, it was going so well, and then it didn't go so well, did it? I award him a 1.5-star rating. He clattered Gasly, he banged wheel with his teammate, picked up a 10-second penalty post-race and 2 points on his super licence. So overall, not a good weekend for Lance. And his teammate Sebastian Vettel picked up 11th place after Lance was awarded that penalty, but I award him a 2-star performance. He qualified 11th, didn't really make much progress. They were both in the points at the point where the rain came down, and it just sort of unravelled from there, and they banged wheels. Yeah, not a lot to say really other than that. Shame for Aston Martin, because they could have gone well at this track. It could have suited them with the Mercedes power unit, but they just couldn't make the most of it. Alpine, and let's start with Fernando Alonso. I award him a 3-star rating. He drove superbly all weekend. It's the Fernando that we all know and love. He was a little bit cheeky, cunning, some people would say, with his escapades at turn 2 on the opening lap. He'd actually practiced it on the way to the grid, and then he pulled it off in the race. I was almost convinced, completely convinced he'd taken at least one place off the track, but it didn't make much difference. He could have had a podium. At one point he was 3rd when the rain was coming down, and then the tyre changes and he dropped down to 6th, which is where he started, but some more decent points for Fernando. His teammate, on the other hand, finished 14th, having started 9th on the grid. Yeah, not a good weekend for Esteban, considering that Fernando was right up there, picking up some decent points. Shame for Ocon, because he generally tends to have good races or just rubbish races, and there's sort of nothing in between. There's no real consistency. It's either feast or famine. Yeah, not a lot to say for Esteban. 2 stars for the young Frenchman. And talking of another young Frenchman, Pierre Gasly, not happy after qualifying. Maybe slightly less unhappy in the post-race, but he could have had better timing to get onto the inters. He was the fastest man on the intermediate tyres. So if they'd gone a lap earlier, maybe 2 laps earlier, they may have been able to pick up some extra places. But no points for AlphaTauri for the second race in a row. Yuki Tsunoda, the same as Pierre, but just worse, really. I mean, he's staying there for 2022, but his seat is hanging by a thread. If he carries on like this next year, he will not be seeing out the season. Agent Albon will be back in there. For the 2 AlphaTauri drivers, it's a shared 2-star rating. Let's head to Williams, and George Russell has scored points again. I mean, who thought we'd be saying that this season? 4 points finishes in the last 5 races. And George is now 2 points behind Yuki Tsunoda in the championship. And that pretty much sums up where Yuki Tsunoda is and how well George Russell is driving. Because that Williams, he is dragging it to places it really, really shouldn't be, like 3rd on the grid or 2nd on the grid in Belgium. Qualified on 3rd. He was the first man onto slicks. He got that 1 extra lap. And I think if he'd gone out there on the slicks straight away and had... he might have then forced everyone else onto the slicks immediately. So he may have even been on the front row. I mean, he could have even had pole had he just gone straight out there on the slicks, which would have been just bonkers. Yeah, stunning performance. Pitted early to cover off Lance Stroll's undercut, and that kind of sacrificed his momentum at the front, but he ran solidly in P3 for the opening stages, and they couldn't get past him. Maybe that's the circuit, maybe that was just George. Who knows? Maybe a bit of both. But yeah, fantastic performance by George. I give him a 3-star performance. And his teammate, he could have been in Q3, but then they were taking the power unit penalty anyway. And then he DNF'd in the race, which was a shame. But Nicky, again, driving really, really well. Yeah, he brings money, and we've spoken about this before. But he's driving beautifully now. He is solidly backing up his teammate. And if he keeps doing this, and there's another crazy race, he could definitely pick up some more points. 2 stars for Nicky this weekend, mostly because he started at the back and then couldn't really make any progress from there, and then he DNF'd, which was a shame. But overall, he's driving really, really well. Moving to Alfa Romeo and Antonio Giovinazzi. Well, he was completely shown up by his teammate this weekend, who I'm going to talk about in a minute. But he's almost certainly on his way out of Alfa Romeo. Just the question is, who are they going to bring in? Are they going to bring in Oscar Piastri? Is it going to be Guan Yu Zhou, Nick De Vries? I think Guan Yu Zhou is the favourite, but I'd like to see Oscar Piastri or Nick De Vries in there too. Guan Yu Zhou as the first Chinese driver in Formula 1 for Alfa Romeo would be massive, but I'm not sure it's the right choice. Not good for Antonio. Only 2 stars this weekend and no Q3 appearance to bail him out. Kimi Raikkonen. Class is permanent, form is temporary, and he missed the last 2 races with COVID. He's into his 40s now. He's seemingly been around since the start of time, and he's still delivering points, scoring finishes. And this is where he's showed up his teammate Antonio Giovinazzi. Really, it should have been Gio picking up these points finishes, but Kimi there, showing his class, showing his experience, getting onto the right tyres, bagging 8th place. Can't say fairer than that. 4-star performance for Kimi Raikkonen this weekend. And the back of the grid team, Nikita Mazepin for Haas. He didn't get in anyone's way. He didn't crash. He finished 2 laps down. He still finished last. So I'd say that's an improvement. 2 stars for Nikita Mazepin at his home race. Not bad for a professional idiot. And Mick Schumacher. Well, I think we've all seen now the heart-wrenching comments that he's made in the Schumacher documentary. It would have been nice for him to complete some more laps than he did, but he had an undisclosed DNF failure in the race. He qualified really well, qualified ahead of Giovinazzi, I believe. So brilliant for him in qualifying. Did the best he could with what he has to lumber around a racing track. So I'd just give him 2 stars. I think that's fair based on his qualifying performance. And there you have the driver ratings for the Russian Grand Prix. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ratings, and if I've gotten them wrong, tell me what you think they should be. So there we go, that is the end of the race recap, but we're not done with the video yet because I need to tell you that Driver of the Month vote for September is about to be open. I'm going to open it up today, which is Monday, so when this comes out, which will probably be on the Tuesday, it'll be there live for you to go and vote. So go on to my straw poll, vote for who you think is the Driver of the Month. You can put in as many votes as you like, and then we will have a little result. I will put out a little video and you can enjoy celebrating who you voted for Driver of the Month. That's all for today. Remember to follow me on Twitter at 5_red_lights and follow me on Instagram at 5redlights. I stream on Twitch on a Thursday and Friday morning at Aaron5RL, and they're also uploaded to YouTube, so you can always find them somewhere, whether you find them on Twitch in the live, or if you find them in the Twitch archives, or if you find them on YouTube, then that's fine. And you can also find me on the Formula 1 Grid Talk podcast. I was on for the Russian race review, so you can download their podcast from all good podcast platforms, or you can find it on YouTube where they go live before they go everywhere else, and you can see what we have to say on each race recap. That'll do it for today. My name has been Aaron. This has been the 5 Red Lights. When the 5 red lights go out, remember that #kind is king, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.